All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Matthew 25 Voices podcast. This is episode 2. This is where we kick everything off. We go right into the interviews. And my co host, Jesse, is going to give his testimony. And this is the reason why we started the whole thing. I've been, like I said, in the first video with the introduction and everything. This is kind of like where we started from and when we met. And he called me up the next day and said he wanted to help out, and I was ready to bring him on and get this thing going. So he knows a little bit more about what's going on than I do, and I just appreciate his help. But anyway, that's enough for me. I've talked a little bit too much, so I'm going to go ahead and let Jesse take it over from here. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hi guys. Like Greg said, my name's Jesse, and I'm the co-host here. My testimony starts, in 1978, the year that I was born. Probably the greatest year in the history of America, the day that I came here. So when I was born, my father came to the hospital, and if this is any indication of how my life would go, when I was born, my dad came to the hospital. My family was there, and then there was an altercation between my grandfather and my father, and my grandfather literally picked my father up by the nape of the neck against a wall and threatened him. Now, in saying that, what you don't know is my grandfather is an old Pentecostal preacher, or he was. I grew up in church my whole life, and like a lot of church kids, I went to church because I had to go, not because I wanted to go. The only reason I wanted to go is because I had friends there. The relationship with Jesus was not the main thing on my mind when I was at church. I just liked being there because it was full of good people and friends. So when I was born, we lived in Indiana. Shortly after I was born, my mother moved to Florida to be with my father. And about the age of 3 or 4, my mother had moved back to Indiana because she was being physically abused. So then we come back to Indiana. I move around a bit with my grandparents, with my mom. My mom then gets with another man, and this man was not a good man at all. He beat my mom as well, and beat my sister bad. Like, he beat my sister so bad that literally she had black and blue marks on her back and on her rear end. Go from there, and my grandfather found out, and some other family members found out, and we get taken from my mom and placed in, it really wasn't foster care because we never went through the system. My grandpa gave my mom basically an altercation, or not an altercation. He gave her basically a choice. You can either take the kids to his friend's house and drop them off until you get your stuff together, or they were going to get the child protective agencies involved. So my mother then took us to the people's house, and they were a good Christian family as well, and we stayed there for a while. But one of the things I remember is when my mom would come and get us, she would take us like to the zoo or out to the park, or she would go do stuff with us, and she would have to bring us back. Well, when she brought us back, my sister would cry and scream, and just the sound of her and her hurt really, really, I think, affected me, and it hurt me. Um, Going forward from there, my mom eventually left that man, and my mom had left him, started going to church, started living right, and then she had gotten with the man that I would call my stepdad when I was about 12 years old. Um, when she had got with him, our lives changed for the better. We then started going to church with, as a family and whatnot. And I had gained a lot of friends because of the churches we were going to and the people we were meeting. Like my mom then became a assistant pastor at a small church in Indiana, in northern Indiana, and she was a an adult Sunday school teacher, like for adults, and she also was worked towards getting her minister's license. Well, everything was good, but there was a problem because we would always jump from house to house to house, and that's because um, there was, I call it financial dysfunction, I guess, in the home, where uh, my stepdad was a very good man. Like he was godly, he was loving, he was caring, but everybody has some kind of a problem no matter what it is. So his problem was he just couldn't I don't think he possessed the skills to hold down a job like for long term. Um we would come home and he would either be looking for a job or whatever. So like there wasn't that sense of stability in that sense of the word, but there was stability as far as being a family unit. Um, Going forward, when I was 17, I moved out of my mother's house, and I then became involved in a little bit of drinking, a little bit of smoking marijuana, um, stuff like that. Just nothing crazy, nothing like to me it wasn't crazy because that was the people I was hanging out with. Um, I I I was couch surfing and I was like just trying to fit in where I could fit in and trying to be accepted where I could be accepted at. Um, all the meanwhile, I would still go to church once in a while just to keep my mom happy. Just because I lived a double I for a long time I lived a double life. Um, I I would I would be like in church, but yet hang out with the people that were totally heathens, as my mom would call them. And then I started hanging out with the guy in the next town over from us, and he had been in prison. And that was the first time that I had ever experienced cocaine. And so I was doing, I would do it, not a lot,
How old
but
were you?
I did do it.
I'm sorry. How old were you when you first did cocaine?
I was probably, I want to say between the ages of 18 and 19.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it wasn't a habit because I didn't have the financial means to provide for myself, because during this time I would work, but I would hop jobs because that's what I was taught, is to hop jobs. Like, you don't feel like going to work today, don't go to work. If you get fired, then you just go to the next job or find another job. Because back then, there was jobs everywhere in northern Indiana. So, I mean, you get a job, you quit a job today, get a job tomorrow. So, not realizing that every application that I filled out, the time at my job would get shorter and shorter and shorter. And then, probably when I was 19, it was right after I met that guy and I did cocaine for the first couple of times. I had met, um, I'd still been going to church off and on. Well, I had met a girl or a woman. I was 19. She was like 23 or 24. I had met a girl, and we had, through friends at church, and we had went to a football game in a town that was probably 45 minutes from us. And at this time, I was driving an old raggedy car, and she had a brand new Explorer. Like, it was like, it probably had 10,000 miles on it, if that. So it was brand new. And so we all went to the football game, and on the way back to pick up our vehicles where we had all parked, she had asked me if I wanted to drive her vehicle. Well, shoot, I'm a 18, 19-year-old boy, and there's this girl asked me if I want to drive her brand new Explorer. Oh yeah, I'm definitely in for this. So she gets in the passenger seat, and there was like, I want to say 3 or 4 other people with us that were in the back. Well, they all fell asleep on the way back to where we were going, because, like I said, it was a 45-minute drive. Well, me and her get to talking or whatever, you know, and she's like, "Hey, can I hold your hand?" And I was like, "This is an older woman with a brand new car. Yeah, you can hold my hand. I don't care." So we were driving along, whatever, and well, the next day, or either the next day or the day after, I can't remember. I think it was like a couple days. She calls me again. She calls me and she's like, "Hey, um, I would really appreciate if you could come over and help us move our stuff into the house." Because what had happened was she had moved up to Indiana, where her parents were from Louisiana, because her dad was in the military. And so she had moved to Indiana. Well, I didn't know this at the time, but she was married. So when I held her hand, I didn't know she was. I didn't. I don't. I didn't think. I don't think I knew she was married. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll come over and help you guys," you know, because she said it was going to be her brother, and her brother's girlfriend was all going to help. Well, yeah, her brother, and her brother's girlfriend was all helping move the stuff out of the moving truck. It was a whole semi, but I didn't know that, you know, what was going to happen later that night. She said, "Well, we're all going to watch a movie. Do you want to stay and watch a movie?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll stay and watch a movie with you guys." So I stayed, and I did what I thought was going to be just watch a movie. Well, come to find out, her brother didn't stay, and him and his girlfriend left, or they went somewhere or something. And so it was just me and her. And one thing led to another, and you know what happens next. Um, and then moving forward, me and her ended up being together. She ended up divorcing her husband. So our relationship from the beginning was a mistake, was something that was not supposed to happen. And I cannot blame her fully, because I did find out that she was married, and I still went forward with my actions. And I feel like a lot of people put the blame on other people when you have to take responsibility for yourself and the things that you have done as well. So we then we then had my oldest daughter, got married, had my youngest daughter. Um, when she was pregnant with my youngest daughter, she had we had separated. We had legally separated through the state of Indiana. And at this point, when we legally separated, she moved into her parents' house. Well, I was supposed to be I was supposed to be paying child support, or they ordered me to pay, but it wasn't coming. I can't remember how it all went down, but I don't. It might have not have been coming out of my check. I might have been taking it up there or mailing it in. But then she moves back in with me into our house that we had. But she didn't change, and this is the key to the whole thing. She never changed her address back to our address where she was living with me. That's my first mistake. The second mistake was I never went back to the courthouse to tell them we were back together. I just stopped paying child support. And we were together for like 2 years after that, which put me behind in child support 2 years. Um, she then eventually moves out again, and then we get separated again, and eventually get a divorce. Um, after we get a divorce, after we get the divorce, I was still hopping jobs because that's what I knew what to do. Is they would at this time they were taking child support out of my checks, and I would leave that job after a couple weeks, a couple months, and I would start another job. And then it would take a couple weeks for them to catch back up to me, and I would work a couple months, and then I would start another job. Because during the whole time, she was fighting me tooth and nail to see my kids, and I knew the only way I could hurt her was to not pay my support, because that would hurt her really bad. And she used it against me constantly. Well, you don't pay your support, so I'm not giving you your kids. I said, well, you're not giving my kids, so I'm not going to pay support. And it was just a battle back and forth. Instead of me just doing the right thing, and like I said, I'm not blaming it on her. Instead of me doing the right thing and just paying my support, and then if she didn't give me my kids, I could go to the courthouse and file against her and say, hey, she's not complying with the court. I want to see my kids. And it's all a process. And Indiana is a woman's state when it comes to, child support and all this. So, long story short, we're battling back and forth. She's not letting me see my kids. I'm not paying support. Going back and forth with jobs. Well, during this time, I start working 2 jobs. My second job was working at a bar as a bouncer. And this is when I'm probably, I don't know, 20, in my mid 20s, mid to late 20s, I guess. Maybe, no, it had to have been probably late 20s. Well, I started working at this bar as a bouncer. I knew the owner, because it's a bar that I regularly attended anyway. So I was like, if I'm going to be here, instead of me paying money to be here, I'm going to get paid to be here. And so I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. And I got paid to bounce. And I got to know this guy. And this guy was nice. He was a good dude. He always took care of us. He always tipped us when he came in the bar. Like, we were bouncing. Me and my cousin and a couple other guys were bouncers. So he would tip us when he would come in. Well, when he would tip us, he'd be like, "Hey, my friend's gonna come in. Can you let him in?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, they can come in." So I would have people come in that didn't have to pay cover charge because we let him in. Well, I got to know this guy really well, and my cousin got to know him before me. Well, better than me, I should say. Well, he started hanging out with him. He brings me in. I start hanging out with him. Next thing you know, this guy has cocaine. So we're doing cocaine. After we're going to the bathroom and snorting cocaine, and we're doing all this other crazy stuff. Um, then moving forward, we start. Long story short, we start selling his product for him. Nothing large, nothing crazy, but we just start selling, a bag here, a bag there, but as time goes on, it's getting like the amounts are getting a little bit bigger. He's trusting us with more product. We're collecting money, we're giving it to him, but in the process, we have free drugs. Like basically, is he would be like, "Hey, here's a bag for you, and sell these ones." All right. So, and then he started breaking us off a little bit of money here and there. Well, moving forward, we got in really really tight with this guy, like really tight, and he then proceeds to let us know who he is. He was in the Mexican cartel. I was not in the Mexican cartel, just to be clear. I just knew somebody in it, and I worked small business for him, I guess you could call it. My cousin was not in the cartel. We just worked for somebody that worked for the cartel. Anyway, we would go to his house, a couple towns over from where we lived. Well, actually, at that time, we were living in the next town over from him. We go to his, and he would call us. He would call us to come pick him up at and he never drove. He would call us to pick him up at restaurants, at bars, at all different hours of the night and the day. It was crazy. I was leaving my house at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to go pick this guy up and take him to another bar or take him to his house or whatever. But he was supplying me with stuff, so I would do it, and I could stay up, and I didn't have to go to sleep. So, we go to his house. He calls us one day. He says, "Hey, come over," and my car had some stuff wrong with it. Like it had a busted headlight and some stuff other wrong. And he was real paranoid about being pulled over. Well, he said, "Hey, come over. I'm going to buy you a car because you've been taking care of me and whatever." I'm like, "All right." So me and my cousin go over, and we think we're going car shopping for us. He's going to buy us both a car. And so we are sitting there, and the apartments at that time that he lived in, you had to press a bell or a buzzer, and then the person in the apartment had an intercom, and they'd be like, "Who is it?" And then you would say who it is, and then they would buzz you through the first door. Then you go up to their door, and you can knock, and then go in like normal. But it was a really, really, really nice. It was a really nice apartment, though. It wasn't like in the hood. It wasn't like, but it was in a nice area, a nice neighborhood, and it was a nice apartment. Then we were all sitting there, and there was a knock on the door. But I remember thinking that was pretty. Whoever's knocking on that door is pretty loud. And why didn't they buzz to come in? Like, how did they get in? And I just thought that maybe somebody had went out and they had caught the door and went in when they were in passing. But his girlfriend looked through the peephole in the door, and she seen, she said, was 4 very large individuals, and they had badges on. Well, I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean they have badges on? Like, that ain't good." Because I know what we were doing, and I didn't know that he didn't have anything there. Right. If somebody with badges is knocking on your door, it's probably not a good thing.
Mm.
Um, so then she goes out in the hallway and talks to them. And as soon as this guy that I was working with found out who, like, that it was probably the cops, he immediately ran to the back room and, like, tried to hide or get on the computer, or he was just back in the back room, like, trying to figure out probably what to do. But we had looked outside, and there was literally black SUVs and cop cars around the whole apartment building.
Mm.
And on the back side of this apartment building, there was a field. They were parked in the field. So, and they were parked in the parking lot. They were parked on the ends. Like, there was nowhere for anybody to go. I don't care if you were in the top. Like, it was it. So she goes out in the hallway. She comes back inside, and she said, "All right, guys, these guys are going to come in, and they're going to search the apartment, but they said they wouldn't draw their guns." I was like, "All right." Well, as soon as they came in, they all had guns. They all had them drawn, and they all had them in our faces. Literally, I think there was
Oh, wow.
4 or 5 of us there, and literally, I had a gun probably a foot from my face, and this guy was yelling, and they were all yelling and screaming at us and asking us, "Where's he at? Where is he at? Where is he at? Where's everything at? Where's the product? Where's this?" And we're like, and I literally had no idea if there was anything in that house. I had no idea. So if there was something in that house, I was hit because I was there. Well, they proceed to search the apartment. And as they're searching the apartment, they're working their way from the living room to the back room. So they're going in and out of all these doors. They're searching through the fridge. They're searching through the cabinets. They're searching through the cushions in the. They're searching under the couch. They're flipping it. They're pulling the couch out and checking behind it, checking underneath it. They're checking the rooms. They're checking under beds. They're checking everywhere, closets. Well, they get to the back room and they find him. Well, at this time, while they're looking for him in the back, and this was the ATF and the FBI. As they were looking for him, they also had guys in the living room throwing down pictures of my vehicle, throwing down pictures of everywhere that I had been, everything that I've done. They were following me and taking pictures of, I mean, for months. They had to have been for months. They had to have been following me for at least 3 months because they had pictures of me at my job. They had pictures of my car at red lights. They had pictures of me at stop signs, everywhere. Restaurants, Red Lobster. I went to pick him and his girl up at Red Lobster, and they had a picture of me picking them up at Red Lobster with them walking out to get in my car. So they were following me everywhere, and I just didn't know it. And actually, what was funny is that my car had been wrecked, and my cousin's girlfriend at the time had borrowed my car, and somebody had hit her, and that's how my headlight got messed up, and that's why he was going to buy us a car, is because my headlight was messed up because somebody hit it. So anyways, long story short, they find him in the back, and what they wanted him for is because he had previously had a house. I'm sorry, he had previously had a house, and at that house, they had found bales of marijuana and kilos of cocaine. When they had found that, he actually was driving by and didn't even stop at his house. Like, they just left everything there, and he just basically abandoned that place and everything that was in it and just restarted over. So and this was, a couple years before. This had been probably 1 to 2 years before we had met up with him and started working with him. So they pull him out in the living room, and they're going through all of his wallet because they have to match his name. They have to match the name that he gives them to the name that they're looking for. They couldn't. All of his IDs were fake. All of his cards and all of his papers had different names on it until they pulled the very last piece of paper out of his wallet. It was from a drug and alcohol class he had taken previously under his real name. That one single piece of paper was enough for them to take him to jail. Then I found out later that he had went to prison for like 1 or 2 years, and then they extradited him back to Mexico because he was illegal. And yeah, that was my first run-in with the law for something as criminal as that. Previously, before that, I had gotten pulled over. I had gotten a speeding ticket or a seatbelt ticket. I didn't pay the ticket, and so there was a warrant out for my arrest. And so I had actually went to the bail bondsman on a suspended driver's license. I drove to the bail bondsman, paid the bail bond, went over to the jail, parked at the jail, walked inside, turned myself in, sat there. That was my first time in jail. I was in jail for about 12 hours before the bail bondsman came over, and it was supposed to be, he literally told me, hey, as soon as you turn yourself in, I'm going to come over there and get you out. Well, it didn't work that way. I turned myself in. He waited 12 hours. Then he came and got me out. So he made me sit in there for a while. So I was in the drunk tank with like 20 other guys. I was just standing there for basically 12 hours. You think I would learn, but I then went to jail 2 or 3 times after that for traffic stuff, for not paying tickets or whatever. Moving forward, I then, after that incident with him and everything was shut down, we weren't doing cocaine no more because we didn't have a supplier. Everything was basically shut down. So then the popular thing to do at the time was we found Adderall. So we started taking Adderall instead of cocaine. And that's what we did. We did Adderall. It was a little bit safer.
What does it do?
Do what?
What does Adderall do? What does Adderall do? What did it do to
Adderall,
you guys? I mean, did it make you high or?
literal, literally, Adderall is just like meth. You can stay
Mm,
up for hours and it gets you high. But it don't get you high. It's made for people with ADHD that are already going fast and their brain, 900 miles an hour. Well, if you
that's
don't
me.
have ADHD, what it does, it right, what it if you don't have ADHD and you take it, it gets you going fast. Like you could stay up for days. But we weren't just taking one pill. We
Mm.
would take 4, 5, 6 pills, and we'd
Oh
just be
wow.
like high. Yeah, so we were getting high, and you could you're talking about like you would get stuck doing things. I remember at the time one of the big things was burning CDs, and you would make mixed CDs or whatever, and we did it off of was it LimeWire, and when I would
Oh
take
yeah.
Adderall, I would spend hours and hours and hours and hours because I would get stuck in that mode, and I was so concentrated on what I was doing that I would just be on LimeWire for hours, listening to music, making CDs, and so I wasn't doing anything real crazy, but we were taking a lot of it. Um, then after that, I stopped doing everything for a while, and I don't think I've ever been addicted to drugs. And just like I've never been an alcoholic. Like I could take stuff and leave stuff so easily. I've
That's
never
good.
been, I have to have this. I have to have this.
Hmm.
So I've never been addicted to stuff. I've just when I do stuff, I do it in large quantities. Like if I drink, I'm not going to drink 2 beers and be done. If I drink, I'm drinking to get drunk. If I do pills, I'm doing pills to get high. But I never liked anything that would bring me down. I always wanted stuff that would bring me up and make me go fast, or I call it make me go fast, like keep me up, because I always wanted to be awake and aware and whatever. So, anyways, I pretty much stopped everything. I got a job, and I was working at an RV factory in northern Indiana because that's what people do in northern Indiana. And I was at work one day, and it was when it was I think it was 2007 or 2008, and a detective comes to my job, and he says, "Hey, I have a warrant for your." Well, my work calls me to the office. I go in the office, and there's a detective in there, and he said, "Hey, I got a warrant for your arrest." I was like, "No, you don't." I was like, "I'm not wanted for none." He goes, "Oh yeah, I got a warrant for your arrest for child support." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I have a warrant for your arrest for child support." I'm like, "Let me see the warrant." Well, just by chance that day, all the computer systems in that county were all the government computers were shut down because they were having problems with them or something. So he couldn't pull the warrant. So he couldn't take me to jail. So he told me, he said, I technically can't take you to jail because I didn't show you a warrant, but you need to be at court on Friday. I said, okay, I'll be at court on Friday. He said, or turn yourself in before. I'm like, yeah, that ain't happening. I'm not turning myself. I'm not going to volunteer to go to jail and then
Right.
wait for court. I'm going to stay out and then go to court. Well, I tell my mom what happened, and come to find out, my ex had signed a piece, and this is what it was. She had signed a piece of paper to have me incarcerated. She literally hated me so much, and I was paying at this time, and this was what was funny is at this time I was paying my child support. I was doing the things I was supposed to be doing because I had, I was like, all right, I'm gonna pay my child support. I'm gonna do whatever. Well, I was doing it. I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And that's when I got busted and caught. It wasn't when I was doing wrong. And I honestly believe the reason I got caught when I was doing stuff right is because if I would have got busted while I was on drugs or whatever, I would have got a more harsh sentence. And I believe with all my heart that God's hand was on my life, protecting me and keeping me safe and keeping me from doing anything stupid, anything more stupid than I was already doing. I believe God's hand was on me saying, okay, I have something for you, but I don't need you to be in prison for 30 years because of drugs. So I believe when I straightened up that God said, okay, it's time to pay for your crime, what you did. So he said, all right, now you can go to jail for a different reason. So so I called my mom. She took me up to the courthouse. And as we were walking in, I remember giving her my wallet, my phone, my money, my keys. I gave her everything out of all my pockets. I gave her everything. And she says, why are you giving me all this? I was like, because I'm going to jail today, Mom. I was like, you need to understand I am going to jail today. She's like, no, you're not. I was like, yeah, you don't understand. I'm going to jail today. So we walk in, we go through the whole court process, and I didn't go to jail until I was actually getting ready to turn around and walk out, and the judge called me back like, hey, Mr. Davis, I see here there's a warrant for your arrest. You need to take care of that first. So the bailiff comes, handcuffs me. My mom's freaking out, crying, and me and my mom were so close that that is the one thing that breaks my heart to this day is the fact that she had to see me go to jail. Like I did I tried to do everything behind, like, so she didn't have to worry about me. So she didn't. I try to protect her no matter what happened to me. I still try to protect her and her feelings. Um, then moving forward, I get out of jail and they sentenced me. They wanted to sentence me to 16 years in prison because I finally had a court date where I got sentenced. They wanted to sentence me to 16 years in prison for two kids, and I think it was like $24,000. Um, but my mom had gotten a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, "No, we're not doing that. We will do 8 years, run it concurrent, which means run it on top. Like, so as I'm doing one 8 years, the other 8 years is also being done. We're going to run those years concurrent, and we want to put him on probation for 8 years." Okay, if that's what you guys, Mr. Davis, if you mess up, you're going to jail. Okay, I understood that. Um, so I got out of jail. I went to court. I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. Well, this was now 2008. In 2008, anybody that's alive or was old enough to know, there was a huge recession in 2008. When I got out of jail, I started talking to this girl, and she lived in Arkansas. And we were just talking, on, I think it was on FaceTime or Facebook or something but I knew her through her sister. And, she would call me and we would talk. But I had a job, but then in 2008, when the recession hit, I lost my job. When I lost my job and I wasn't working, that was a violation of probation right there. But if I would have went to my probation meeting, I could have talked to him and told him, I could explain myself. But I was so scared at the time. That girl said, "Hey, let's run. Let's go to Arkansas." I was like, "What?" She's like, "Let's go to Arkansas. We can go to Arkansas and they can't find you. And we can still be together." So we literally bought train tickets and went to Arkansas.